All right. Hello and welcome to Wise Women with Whys. That I get to share with you one of the wisest women that I have been blessed to have as a friend. I want to introduce to you today Cindy Bright, who has a very pro life perspective, but a very unique pro life perspective that is challenging for those in the pro life arena. I have seen, been privileged to see Cindy with her beautiful big family and the choices she made to get there. There is just so much richness in what she has to share. I want to welcome her and welcome you to hearing her amazing story. Cindy, thank you for being here.
Oh, well, Brenda, it's such an honor to be with you. And I do consider you to be one of my dearest friends. And I look up to you so much. And you're an inspiration to me. So I just want to start off by saying that I love you.
Uh,
And I just pray that God's going to use this for
yes,
his glory.
me too, Cindy. I thank you for your humility and your courage. It takes
Thank you.
both to share your story, and
Yeah.
yeah, I really appreciate that, and I know God's going to use it for His glory and for the good of so many people who need to hear that I needed to hear the message that you have. Like I so
Yeah.
appreciate it. So let's start off with most of us have really strong feelings, strong passion toward an area where we have either made the biggest mistakes or we've overcome the greatest hardships. And this story for you, I know, began with something that happened in your teens. And so I just want to give you the freedom to share that story with however and whatever you want to do.
Okay. I appreciate that. Well, first of all, I'd just like to say that when I was growing up, I had the belief that I could do anything. I believed that I could whatever area I wanted to pursue in my life. I felt like I had the intelligence. I could do whatever I wanted. That was a very strong belief that I had. I was a good student, and I was very active in sports, and I got along with I got along better with it than I did with my peers. And I'm just saying those things because I think it kind of tells a little bit about my personality. I had those beliefs, but at the same time, I didn't like doing things that I wasn't particularly good at. So if I was good at a sport, then I participated, and I participated, with everything I had. But if there was some area where I felt maybe I messed up or something, I would pull back and I just avoid those things. So, um, and I was always um, kind of a goody two shoes, I'd say. I mean, I was a rule follower, and so that was kind of, the kind of young person that I was.
Yeah.
Um, when I was, I think 17, I started dating someone that was older than I was, and like, I mean, I don't think it's totally uncommon for someone in their teens um, to get pregnant. And when I when I found out that I was pregnant, I didn't have any strong feelings one way or the other. I just was like, oh, okay. But I had a couple of people that were really close to me that um, made the observation that I was so smart and I had such an amazing future, ahead of me, and that this unplanned pregnancy would ruin my life. And I
Mm.
remember when I heard those words, it was literally like someone took their fist and just hit me in the stomach, as hard. It was a gut punch. Like I mean, it was just a gut punch is what it was. And it was like, I remember just kind of like taking that, you know, oh. And then it was like there was something that happened in my mind because that wasn't something that I was thinking about. But once that idea was placed there, it was like, oh. And I think the biggest motivation for me of initially agreeing with that wasn't so much that I was concerned about my future, but um, there was when the doctor told me that I was pregnant, basically he also mentioned that my dad's blood pressure was really high and that we needed to keep things calm at home. So with that, um,
Wow. Yeah, you had
you
some
know,
guilt. You had a layer of guilt there that you
I
offered.
did just right in the beginning, and then it was like I had a I was pretty close to my dad, but there was I don't know how to explain it, but as long as I was doing well, I got approval from my dad, but I just was always very afraid to let him down. I didn't want to disappoint him. I wanted him to be proud of me. And so that was a big, strong motivator. And then having that, you know, said to me that, we needed to keep, I mean, there was a fear that kind of entered in like, well, what if, my dad found out that I was pregnant, gave him a heart attack and he died, I mean, that type of thing.
Right.
So,
And I imagine that with having somebody that you respect say
mhm.
to you that this could ruin your life,
Oh yeah,
that probably played into different areas as well, as far as
yeah,
you knew what you wanted out of life, but you also knew that you wanted to continue to make your dad proud,
yeah.
and so all of
All
that,
of those
like,
things.
it sounds like
Yeah,
there's a
all of
lot
those
of
things.
maybe fear and guilt that was going on when
Yes.
when you were making this
Well, and
decision.
then and I was a lot attached to the initial decision, but then what it was interesting was that there started to be like justifications for it. Like I was concerned about because I had actually started taking birth control pills, but I was pregnant. I was pregnant. I think I was pregnant when I started taking them, honestly. So I started, it's like, well, I was just convinced that there would be something, that taking those birth control pills would have harmed the baby. So I was concerned about the safety of or the health of my baby, which is ironic that I ended up taking my baby's life. So that's just
It's
doesn't make any
confusing.
sense. But
It's just
yeah, but
confusing.
I mean, it was right before I turned 18. So I mean, I didn't have a fully functioning brain at that point. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's like, um, there were other things that, there were justifications that, well, because I was concerned about this, and a lot of them had to do with I was concerned about the baby. Anyway, right.
Yeah, yeah. It's not that you were hard-hearted. There
No,
was a very true concern there.
yeah,
It just gets kind
right.
of twisted up in your head with
It
things
really
not.
did, and it was, I mean, I was just starting my senior year of high school, and anyway, I there was never one thing I will say is that there was never a person that offered me an alternative. There was never a person that said, that's not true. I mean, it might make things difficult, but it doesn't ruin your life. You know what I'm saying? But
Yeah.
I latched onto that, and I really believed that.
You really believed it would
And
ruin your life.
yeah, well, I mean, when I made the decision, well, once I made the decision, um, I think I was really numb for several months, but then right after the first of the year, I mean, I just started having um, everywhere I looked, something would remind me of baby. I mean, it was like advertisements on billboards, or I mean, I noticed every baby, every pregnant person, I mean, it just became, it's just started to, just be in my face everywhere. And the realization about what I had done just started crashing down. And that's where the guilt really started overwhelming me.
Yeah.
Um,
There's something that I heard this week. I'm probably going to mess it up. But the quote was, "Fear always makes sure to legitimize the reason why you have it. Something to that
Yes.
effect. I just butchered it, but you
Yes.
get the idea. When we're operating in fear, it seems that there are
Mhm.
things that continue to present themselves to say, yes, you should be fearful. Yes, you should be fearful.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Well, and then I think I've shared with you this with you before, but what started happening, I started having this really dreadful dream. I kind of had I had kind of had trouble sleeping when I was a teenager. Anyway, it's never really gone away, but I would have this very haunting dream in which, because my dad, the one thing that when I had the abortion, my dad never knew. He never knew that I was pregnant. He never knew about the abortion. My mother did, but my dad never knew.
Because you were protecting
Um,
him. You didn't want
I
his
was
blood
protecting
pressure to
him.
go too
Exactly.
high. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, and then that fear that, oh my gosh, if he found, because I'm the oldest of five, and he always called me his number one daughter just because I was the first one. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Sometimes I felt like this because I was his favorite, but that's a joke between, if my siblings hear this, we always joke about who's the
Who's the
favorite. So,
favorite?
but yeah, but I mean, he did call me the number one daughter. So, if you're number one, then you've got to be the favorite, right? Anyway, but I mean, so I would have this dream, and my dad would find out, and he would immediately get in his truck and drive out to my boyfriend's house. And my dad was a hunter, so he always had guns. Like in Montana, you always have the guns
The gun rack
in
on
the
the
back
back of
of
you.
the pickup truck. Yeah, in the back of the pickup. So, my dad got in his truck and drove there. And I got in my car and followed him. Well, when my dad got there, he honked his horn, and my boyfriend came out onto his porch. My dad shot him. So my boyfriend died. And then my dad dropped over, having a heart attack. And I ran up to him. His head is in my lap, and I'm covered in blood. And I hear these words: an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. The only way to make up for the lives that you've taken is to take your own. And so I would have these suicidal thoughts. Like, if anything, whenever I had a perceived failure, if anybody ever called me a certain word that I had kind of made a connotation that, anybody that had an abortion was it, it rhymes with rich, starts with the B. If anybody ever said that word, I would, I would, I would start. It almost got to be the spiraling thing that it was like, if you said that to me, or if I felt like I wasn't a good mom, or I had a failure or whatever, it would almost get to the point I don't deserve to live, and I could go very quickly from being fine to having suicidal thoughts, and so I struggled with that for years. Just put me on a treadmill. Like, I had to prove myself, and I had to do, I was very past or performance
Performance?
oriented.
Yeah.
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 Like I said, it just, it was, I struggled with that for a long time. I had my abortion when I was 18, and I'm now 61. So it was a lot of years ago. Um, Now I would say that I'm trying to remember I was would kind of stuff it, and it was like I was okay. I was okay. I didn't really, I just had to work it out on my own. I didn't ever want to get help for years. I didn't want to. But once my dad died, I felt compelled to share my story, because I really didn't want. I mean, obviously there's a life that was lost. My baby isn't here because of the decision that I made, but it didn't just destroy my baby; it destroyed me for a good
And
portion of my life.
yeah, and that's where I want to pause and be sure that
Yeah,
anybody listening is really hearing what you're saying
yeah,
here, because not only is it when fear motivates us to do something
hmm,
that we keep seeing things that are like, yes, yes, I should be
yeah,
scared, but it's when guilt
yeah,
over that comes,
hmm,
condemnation. I'm going to say condemnation
yeah,
because I don't think guilt's a bad thing if we deal with it, right? And
Right,
then we're
right.
free from it. But when it keeps hammering us and saying what a
Mhm,
horrible that's condemnation. And when we believe that,
mhm.
then more comes and more comes.
Yeah.
Just like your dream, what a horrible, horrible thing. Guilt came from having the abortion,
Mhm.
but then guilt was piled on top of it through that. And
Right.
I mean, you lived, I know you did live with years of that condemnation and, like you said, those
Yeah.
suicidal thoughts. So I just want to point out how damaging fear and guilt are, and
I totally,
and
totally.
that you were able to get past that. You were able to overcome
Yeah.
that, and I want you to
Yeah.
share that.
Yeah. Well, one thing I want to say, I was raised in the Catholic Church, and there was a point, like I think I was probably in my early 20s where I actually went to a face-to-face confession at the Catholic Church.
Mm.
And I'll never forget the priest. It's like, it's like I unloaded this, I got this off my chest in the church, and he said something to me that was really very powerful, but it didn't click with me.
Mm.
I mean, it did, but it didn't have a change. He said that that when I confessed my sin, that God was faithful to forgive me. The first time I asked, He forgave me.
Mm.
And He pointed out, He says, Cindy, you need to forgive yourself. And that is
Cute.
something that I don't fully think that I've been able to do. I mean, it's like, I cannot believe that I did what I did. You know what I mean? It's like, I disappointed myself so much. But anyway,
Doing what you thought was right.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but anyway,
Well, yeah, that forgiveness that he extends to you and that has brought a
mhm,
lot of
yeah,
healing in your life. Um,
right.
it has also caused you to have some convictions about
Mhm,
women who were faced with the decision that you were faced with. You have a really unique perspective, and I've never heard anyone share it quite like you have before, as far as people who say they're against abortion.
mhm.
If you're for life, what does that mean, Cindy? Like, tell us
Well,
because it's beautiful.
well, the thing is like I said, the what really stood out to me is like people would say, "Are you anti-abortion?" and "Are you pro-choice?" That just those terms bothered me. It's like, well, yeah, I am against abortion, but I'm really pro-life. I'm
For
not.
life, right?
So basically, to me, it's like I want to flip it around. So what you're saying is, if you say you're pro-choice, then really you're anti-life. I mean, you see
Can
what
you
I'm saying?
flip
It's
it?
like
Yeah, yeah.
everybody wants to put the spin on it that to make their position look like it's the positive, right?
Yeah.
But initially, like I said, it was after my father passed away, um, and that with that realization that it's like when I was faced with that decision, I didn't have anybody giving me an alternative or telling me that you know this might make it difficult. You know what I'm saying? That's anybody that said, no, you can do this. You can raise a baby, or you could find a family that would be able to take care of your baby. I mean, there were other options besides
Right.
the one that was presented. Um, but I actually testified. I don't know if I've ever told you this, but in Montana, I testified before the State House of Representatives. There was a bill that they were introducing. This was back, in the 90s, that they wanted women that were before they were before they had an abortion, they wanted information or other choices to be presented. And so I testified, which was pretty huge for me because I don't like I don't like being um, talking in front of people. And I mean, this is pretty intimidating to go on the House floor of the,
Yeah,
the state Senate or the House of Representatives, and
right.
having all these people looking at you. But so I did that, and I was active in the pro-life movement. I always worked a booth, at our fair, and would just kind of talk to people about it when they would, if they were interested in walking by. But I really felt my relationship with the Lord grew. I really felt like he was calling me. It's like, if you say you're for life, but you don't give any alternatives. I mean, like, if you're not willing to step up and help people that are in that situation where this seems like it might be the best option, then, you know,
Yeah.
are we really, I don't want to say like, if you're not doing that, then you're not a Christian, but I mean, that was kind of the way I felt. It's like, put your money where your mouth is type of thing. I mean, what are you willing to do? I mean, are you willing to take care of these children? And um anyway, so
And I love that, Cindy. I love that
yeah,
you had that's the perspective that convicted me and show, like
yeah,
to to be able to say I'm pro-life.
yeah.
I think every baby should have a chance to live.
Hmm.
Um is one thing, but to say
Hmm.
I'm pro-life, I believe every baby should have a chance to live, and I'm willing to help make that happen through
Yeah,
whatever sacrifices are needed on my part.
right,
Like that's a
right.
whole different story. So, um,
Yeah,
you've done that.
yeah,
You
yeah,
have done that, and you have an
yeah,
amazing story. So
yeah,
continue to
yeah. So
share.
okay, so um, it it just so happened that I always kind of had this feeling. Two of my best friends when I was in junior high were both adopted, and my husband, his his father, when his father, so my husband's father's father passed away like during the depression, and so my husband's father actually spent some time in an orphanage because his mother couldn't take care of him. It was a really hard time back then, and she was you know a widow and had you know boys to feed, and so she did the best thing that she knew to do, and that was to put him someplace where she at least would know that they were being fed. And he spent several years in an orphanage, and then his grandmother ended up getting remarried. And when she remarried, her husband said, "We're going to go get those boys and bring them home." Well, he was a widow. He was a widower as well. So they ended up having this combined family. He had, I don't know, 4 or 5 kids, and there were the two boys that had been in the orphanage. So they had this combined family. And the one thing about him is that and I really feel like it was him. He just had this, his name was Overall, and so he just the way that family was, they were blended, but I mean, they loved each other and they supported each other and they did everything for each other, and that was I saw that, and I was just so blessed by it. And
Yeah.
so with all of those pieces, I kind of felt like I was gonna adopt someday. And this was after, like, we were empty nesters. We have 2 biological kids, and when our kids were out of the house and we were like, "Yay, we're free," um, the Lord kind of
So
tapped me
you
on my
thought.
shoulder and said, "Yeah." So um, there was a little thing at church, and it said, "If you've ever considered adoption, call this number." And so I did, and I drug my husband to this Bible study that was called Considering Adoption, and that's where we met Randy and Vicki Akins, and that was back in 2009, 2010. Was that? Yeah, something like that. And it it really changed our lives.
Because
Um,
Randy and Vicky Akins
yeah,
are
they they um, they have a ministry called Chosen Ones, and basically Chosen Ones recruits, supports, and connects foster families. And when we met them, we were doing a Bible study that was called Considering Adoption. And like I said, I drug my husband there. He wasn't convinced that this is something that we needed to do at our ages, you know. And so when we went, um, when when we found out the statistics for kids that are in foster care that age out, um, they the percentage of kids that are homeless, in prison, trafficked. I mean, it's very, very heartbreaking
enormous.
statistics.
Yes.
And so it was like when that dropped into his heart and he got a hold of it, it was like, we're doing this. And so we started fostering, and what we wanted older kids, you know, sibling groups. And we kind of thought, well, the kids that would maybe be harder to place. And so we, like I said, we got licensed, and um, we've actually adopted 6. Um, and they're wonderful, beautiful children. Um,
So your children's
and
ages, all of your children's
my
ages are from
okay,
what to what?
so um, this is always confusing because like half, like there's birthdays that happen. Okay, so I think 36, our biological kids are 36 and 33, and then our adopted kids are 24, 21, 19, 17, 16, and 14. So we go from 14 to 36. And my I have 7 adopted grandchildren. So my 2 biological kids they've adopted as well. And so I've
That's
got adopted grandkids from age 4 to 19. So
that's amazing
pretty, yeah.
and
So I
beautiful.
mean, what 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 I I think what I just want to say about this is that um, you know, the devil comes to kill, steal, and destroy. That's what he has. That's his
See, it's
MO, I guess.
MO. Yep.
It
Hmm.
is his MO, and he did his best, and he um, you know, he almost took me out, but I
But
got God has a way of just um, taking something that was the enemy meant for evil, and I think he's just turned it around, and he's really um, created a legacy for our family.
absolutely. Isn't that
God has.
beautiful?
God has done that. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. He's done
Yeah.
that because your heart was open to hear what he was saying to you, and
Yeah.
you were humble enough to hear it and to walk
Yeah.
through a lot of hard things to get to the
Yeah.
place where you could say
Yeah.
yes. And and yes, the
Yeah.
legacy, oh my goodness, that your biological
Yeah.
children are now doing what you have chosen to do with adoption.
Yeah.
And you have
Yeah.
so many children and grandchildren,
Yeah.
biological and adopted, um, which is what God has, right? Like we've got,
Yeah.
the Jews and the
Yeah.
Gentiles are what I think of, like that
Yeah.
brand new
Exactly.
and adopted,
Yeah.
how special adoption is.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but that He's redeemed. He has redeemed so
Yeah.
much in your life, and I love being able to be a part of that.
Yeah.
But I love the perspective that you have that takes it a layer deeper. That's those
Yeah.
things that we say we're for.
Mhm.
How for them are we?
Yeah.
Are we
I mean,
giving
like
lip
if it
service?
costs, yeah. If it costs you something, are you still for it? You know, I
Right,
mean,
right.
that's why I say kind of, are you willing to put your money where your mouth is? It's like you say that you're for something, or you're against whatever, but I mean, are you really willing um to step up? And I'm not saying that everybody that's had an abortion should, you know what I'm saying? I, should This is how you redeem it. That's
No,
not what
this
I'm
is how
saying.
God did it for you.
Yeah. And the other thing that I just really, I mean, the reason I sometimes, like, I'm pretty free about telling my story. Um, because I really like if it if it helps one person to just, make a different choice or to just think about the choice. You know what I'm saying? That's why I share it. Is that I just hope that it helps somebody from, making that kind of a just
Because it's
mistake.
because what so much is talked about is with abortion, we talk about the baby, which obviously
Yes.
is
Yeah.
a,
Obviously.
big deal there.
Yeah.
But we tend to leave out the mother
Yeah.
and the fear and the guilt
Mhm.
and the what ifs and the reasons for the
Yeah.
choice in the first place and the lack of support, and
Yeah.
you get both sides of that really, really well.
Yeah.
And your heart loves and is compassionate on both sides of that. And
Yeah.
I just appreciate you so
Yeah. Well, I
much.
appreciate you too.
You know,
Well,
I,
like I said, I hope it helps somebody, that
yeah,
would be
I
my
will
prayer.
totally believe that
Mm,
somebody needs to hear this. And
yeah.
if the series that we're doing called Wise Women with
Hmm.
Whys are because wise women have whys. Like wise women
Right.
do what they do because there's a why, a purpose driving them. And
Right.
so if you could put that into a sentence, what is your why for making the choices that you have made?
Um, that's a good question. I mean, the thing that comes to my mind is that um, when God created mankind, He created us for relationship, and He put us in families. He put the lonely in families, and that's. I mean, I think that's what I'm hoping you know, to put forth is that, you're part of God's family
Yeah.
and you belong. And I hope that my kids get that.
Well, not only are you doing it yourself, you're helping others to see that. And so thank you, Cindy.
You're
Thank you
welcome.
for sharing the story. Thank you for being vulnerable. And thank you
Hmm.
for the courage to just not just share your story, but to actually do the hard things that God's put in your heart to do. Thank you for blessing us here today.
Thank you.
All right. If somebody wants to
Okay.
get hold of you, if somebody has a
Mhm.
question, if somebody's listening and would like to get hold of you, what would be the best way to do that? Should they reach out to me and we'll connect them, or is there a way that they can reach out directly to you?
Well, right now, I would just say, I am at Chosen Ones.
Yes.
That's the ministry that I am part of. And so if they want, and I lead a prayer and care team there. And so if somebody would like to get a hold of me through that email, that would
Chosen.
probably be the easiest. And that email is Cindy, CINDY, at choseenones.org.
Cindy at choseenones.org. All right. And we will put
Okay.
that on here as well. And if you're listening to this and there's somebody in your life that needs to hear this, or if you have some questions, if you're in the process of making a decision or you've already made one and you just want somebody to talk to, I can tell you, I don't know of anybody any safer
Mhm,
emotionally for you to
mhm,
talk to than Cindy. So,
mhm.
Cindy at choseenones.org. Thank you again, Cindy, for being with us today. Bless you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye bye.